Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to the launch of this remarkable book, The Making of a Judge. Today, we are here to celebrate the literacy works for being a judge. My name is Linda Mumasaba. I am your moderator, and I hand over to my co-moderator now.
Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you to everybody that is joining this amazing book launch. And who are we celebrating today? We are celebrating the life of Honorable Justice Asnath Ongeri. She's a Kenyan judge and author with over 35 years of service in the judiciary of Kenya. Admitted to the bar in 1987, she began her career in 1989 and was appointed a judge of the High Court in 2015. Throughout her judicial career, she has served at Garsen, Mombasa, Kericho, and Voi High Courts. In addition to her legal work, Lady Justice Asnath is passionate about the transformative power of knowledge. In 2014, she wrote her first book, and today she's launching her third book, which my co-moderator just mentioned a little earlier, The Making of a Judge, with more books actually in progress. So you want to follow her on her social media platforms so that you don't miss out both on this book and the others that are in the kitchen coming. Now, she believes that knowledge is key to personal growth and societal change, and uses her writing to share her testimony and help others to prepare for the second coming of Christ. Already you know that she's passionate about her faith. Justice Asnath has been married to Gilbert Ongeri for 40 years, and they have 4 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Through her career and her writing, she continues to inspire others with her belief in the power of knowledge to transform lives and communities. And so today we are celebrating the book and the launch of the book, and I want her to introduce herself so that you just don't hear it from me, but let's hear from her, and then we will introduce our other guests. Judge, please introduce yourself.
Hi, again, my name is Asnath Ongeri. I am a judge of the High Court of Kenya. And apart from being a judge, I am a wife, a mother of 4 daughters, all of them grown-ups, and 4 grandchildren. I am a preacher. I am also a singer, and I call myself an ambassador of mediation. I'm passionate about mediation as a method of resolving disputes. But apart from that, I am an author. I'm passionate about the publishing ministry. I published my first book in 2014, and this is my third book, The Making of a Judge. The reason I wrote this book is that after I wrote the first book, many people kept asking me about my life journey. I did not talk much about myself in the first book. So I decided to write this book in order to inspire someone that it is possible to attain your dreams. So I have 4 thematic areas in the book. I talk about faith and transformation. In the first book, I talked about something that happened that changed my life. When I was traveling in a public bus and I was involved in an accident. Before that, I dreamed of being an author. But I think that is what spurred me to start writing, because I realized that life can be transient. Don't wait for big occasions to fulfill your dream. Just do what you have to do when you have to do it. So I became an author with that incident. And now I've talked about the journey of faith and the role faith has played in the making of this judge, of me as a judge. I have also talked about resilience. I have talked about personal trials and delays. Before I became a judge, I worked for the judiciary of Kenya for 25 years as a magistrate. And at one time, I almost gave up on the dream of becoming a judge. But with the new constitution, things happened. And here I am, and I've written all these stories to encourage someone who has a dream to know that all dreams are attainable. I've also talked about justice and integrity, about upholding societal and institutional values, and also withstanding pressure. I've told some of the stories that made me whom I am today. So I call it footprints of faith, the stories that transformed my life. Some of them happened in such a manner that I did not have an idea that God was preparing me to become a judge of the High Court of Kenya one day. And one of the incidents is something that happened when I was a young girl in the village, when one day auctioneers visited our home and carted away everything. I became very curious about what law is all about. There was no lawyer in my village. But when I talked to my mother about becoming a lawyer, she told me, no, nobody will marry you if you become a lawyer. But today, I am here because one who was then my friend and now my husband encouraged me to take up this career. I have also talked about empowering others. I want everyone to be encouraged that you can attain your dreams in this life. You can actually attain your dreams. At the time I dreamt of being a lawyer, I did not see how it was going to be possible. So my father kept on saying, one day you'll go to university, even before I knew what university was. But because of that affirmation, I want to thank my family. I want to thank my husband for encouraging me to take up the law career. He has stood with me, and he is always my supporter. I also want to thank our children who have worked with me in this journey. I also want to thank friends, some of whom, and my mentors, some of whom I've invited to be my guests in this book launch. So you're welcome, and we will tell you more about the book. Apart from The Making of a Judge, I've written 2 other books.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lady Justice, for that amazing introduction of yourself and the book. So I would like to introduce our 2 guests who have joined us for this book launch. And so I will just request Your Lordship, Chief Justice Emeritus, kindly introduce yourself. I know you are not new to many of the people that we are talking to today, but just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll just be brief. My name is Willy Mutunga, and I was Chief Justice and President of the Supreme Court 2011 to 2016. I don't like the word retired because it has a suggestion that you are tired. I'm also currently an adjunct professor in public law at Kabak Law School.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you so that you can talk to us a bit about the role of mentorship in professional development. But I want our next guest to kindly introduce yourself to those who have joined us for this book launch.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Jane Nyakang'o. I'm an environmental scientist, currently a consultant for the UN, United Nations Environment Program, and the World Bank in the area of environment and social safeguards. I am the former chairman of University Council, Dedan Kimathi University, and also president of the African Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption and Production. And happy to be here. Justice Ongeri has really inspired me. I look up to her, and she's my big sister, so I'm happy to be here at this book launch.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jane Nyakang'o, for joining us on this panel today. I forgot to say my name. My name is Lorraine Magotsi, and I'm your co-moderator today. So I'll just hand it over to my co-moderator, Linda, and she will take us through some questions just for the author, Her Ladyship, Justice Asna, so that we're able to understand more about why did you write the book. You've told us the message in the book, but there are other things that perhaps people would like to know. How was your journey? And so my co-moderator will take us through that.
Judge, you've told us that you're a mother, you're a judge. What really inspired you into writing this book, given the fact that you have a lot in your hands? I know the work of a judge is a lot. What really inspired you to write this book, The Making of a Judge?
I grew up desiring to be an author. I think one of the things that inspired me to love law is the much reading. My father was a teacher, and he used to bring home lots of books. So I read a lot of books, storybooks. I read many of the authors, the African authors, Chinua Achebe, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Michelle Mugo. So I dreamed of becoming an author one day. But when I studied law, I found that being a magistrate and then later a judge was a full-time career. There was hardly time to do any writing. But I kept on desiring that one day I'll do my book. Until that day when I had this incident, when I was involved in an accident and I almost lost my life. And then I realized that it's possible to go to the grave with your song unsung. And it is possible to dream about things which you never do. So out of that experience, I decided now to live my dream life. So before that, I was just a career magistrate, going to court and back home and not involved in anything. But there was a remarkable change. My transformation had started. And now I have done 3 books and many are in the pipeline. So I realized that you have to budget your time. Much as you have a lot of judgments to draft, a lot of cases to hear, you have got to live your passion. So I started creating time to write. And you don't have to have all the time. If you dedicate 5 minutes each day to draft something and you throw it somewhere, and then one day you retreat and put together the book. That's how I started to write. So that accident was a wake-up call. And a lot of the incidents I've talked about in my book were things which happened that at that time when they happened, I thought it was a bad thing. But later, I came to discover that God uses all these things to shape your life and to direct you in a particular direction. So that is why I wrote my book, to encourage someone who is going through challenges to know that you can overcome challenges and live your dream life.
And maybe, Judge, given your vast experience in the judiciary, 35 years of experience, did you have any challenges in writing about the judicial process? I read your book and you talked about this lady, your friend, Atieno. And I would really love to know where Atieno is at the moment. But as you were writing this book, did you face any challenges with regard to writing on the judicial process?
What I decided to do is to write my personal stories. I call them footprints of faith. I decided to write what inspired me, the most interesting cases I did, the saddest cases I encountered, and also walking through the Judiciary Museum, I realized that my picture is actually there as one of the pioneer women in the judiciary. So I decided to write my interaction with the Chief Justices. Today, our current Chief Justice is my 10th Chief Justice since I joined the judiciary. So I decided to talk about each of them and how they impacted my life. As for the girl Atieno, I have never met her. But I remember that she was my friend in primary school. And because she was different, she came from a different community, spoke a different language, she was bullied. I took upon myself to protect her. Little did I know God was preparing me one day to be a judge. Now looking back, I realized that whatever happens in your life, it has a bearing in what you become. But I see God's hand in it. I see God guiding and opening doors, which I never knew were going to be opened for me. So I realized that even as a young, growing up child in the village, I had that sense of justice. I also remember a neighbor who I saw one day crying and putting her hands on her head. So I talked to my mom and I asked her, why is she crying? And mom told me, it's because some people went and grazed her crops.
Yeah.
And then I asked her, why? And then she said, she's a widow and there was no one to protect her. So I decided to do something for the vulnerable, for the weak in society.
Thank you very much, Judge. Chief Justice Emeritus, maybe do you have a few questions to our author?
No, not at all. But I've read the draft, and there are interesting stories about the judiciary itself, which is told truthfully. One of the things also I noticed, which a lot of judges don't talk about, because when we talk about corruption in the judiciary, we tend to talk about the executive, parliament, the corporate sector, the civil society sector, but we rarely mention our families. And there's this story she tells, which is amazing, where her father comes with somebody who wants to be our agent, and the talk there is the judiciary can make a lot of money, and but you have to, to have somebody who is an agent. In fact, little did you know that there are others who appoint themselves agents without your knowledge. So the story is about corruption, about the Chief Justices without any, bringing any judgment. I think it's very, very, very interesting. Obviously, the story of Chesoni and the way it summoned every woman in court and transferred them. You don't have, she doesn't have to say she was dealing with a male chauvinist. But it's a beautiful story told, and the interpretations are between the lines, and that's what I really liked about it. Yeah.
Daktari, what's your take?
I've gone through her book, and I really get so inspired because knowing that she grew up in the highlands of Gusii region, where those days, even going to the university itself, ruled you out of getting a husband. Couldn't make a husband because you'd be untamable.
Oh.
So now, to make it worse, she goes to do law. So it means even the language that husband has to speak in the house, has got to be really, a legal language. So I'd like to understand really, beyond what you just explained, those days, how did it just happen that you decided to go and do law? Because some of us, we were being told to be teachers, like so-and-so's daughter, a nurse.
Yeah.
What pushed you? What is it?
I actually never chose law from high school because I was convinced that if I do law, I will not get a husband. But it is at that time that I met my current husband, and we were friends. And he encouraged me. He asked me, "You've passed very well. Why are you going to do a general degree?" Actually, I was in the BA class for a few months.
Below average.
Yes, and then I remember my first assignment. I was doing literature, and my first assignment was compare the literary styles of Michelle Mugo and Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Yes.
And it is at this moment my husband told me, that time he was still my friend, why
boyfriend.
don't you study law? I never told him why I left it out. But I went smiling all the way to the Faculty of Law and filled the form, and the rest is history.
Oh, so the community did not know.
The community did not know.
Yeah, and that explains it.
But Judge, then it looks like you had known that you could get a husband, isn't it?
And I think that's why I ran to do law, because now I have the future husband,
Yes.
and I can do the career of my dream. But one thing that inspired me to study law is this visit of auctioneers to our home. One of my favorite stories, and I'll do an excerpt about it. When auctioneers just visited our home, and my humble mom welcomed them. She didn't know they were auctioneers. And those days, I think auctioneers would be offered a meal, because she told me she offered them a meal, after which they told her, we have come to cut away your goods. And she said, no, go to where my husband is working at the school. And she said, no, this is his home. And so when I came home and our house was empty, I was curious, what is this? We didn't have a lawyer in the village. And that incident is one of the things that made me curious about studying law and deciding to do law and help people understand their rights.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe actually, Dr. Jane, we can start with you.
Yes.
I'm curious also to understand, because you seem very drawn to how she ended up studying law despite the circumstances at that time. Yes. So maybe you can tell us, what do you think then is the importance of education as a tool to empower, particularly women, so that they can take up some of these jobs that we consider to be either for the men, or they are not very suitable for women because maybe of the other responsibilities that, you know, come with women?
I think education, and taking it from, you know, where Lady Justice has reached, it's really one that breaks the myth that girls cannot scale the heights that our male children can. And also that there are certain professions which are preserved of the men and not the girls. So her achievement actually is a big inspiration to not only the local community that she comes from, but now the entire world. And, you know, even that being documented in the form of a book, they'll actually be used to, you know, inspire others that, yes, you can be what you want if you work at it. And I really get so amazed. In fact, she was one of those ladies that I also grew up in Kisii. We used to look up to them, you know, and we still do. So even when you find yourself at some level, you still find there's somebody again above you that you look up to. So really, so it is really very important that as we build the society, work together, we should not leave anyone behind. Not the girl child, not the boy child, but they should all be, you know, supported to achieve their dreams.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And maybe you can also tell us about, what do you consider to be the importance of, you know, lifelong learning and personal growth?
You see, what I would like now, what I see in Lady Justice Ongeri is that just beyond that formal education, you get a degree, first, second, third degree, you still find that we are living in a very fast changing world. You know, it's a lot of transformations, digital transformation and all that. And so you have to adapt very quickly and reconfigure yourself. Otherwise, you'll be left behind. And so for her, I get encouraged that even all the time, she's learning seminars, conferences, professional, you know, certifications. That's what all of us do. I mean, I see myself in her because I realize if your pulse is not on the environment, the changing environment, you cannot be able to fit in. So it is very important that even after we achieve our professional qualifications, we still continue to repurpose ourselves, to align ourselves to the new environment and be able to deliver better than we have delivered. And so I'm so happy with my sister here, and even in the way she's launching this book. We're so used to, going to a big hall and, that's where, you have a crowd and physically launching it. So you see, this is the adaptation we are talking about. Completely digital transformation. This is very good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So those of you watching us, I hope you are taking a few notes so that you are encouraged and you know that it is possible to break the glass ceiling. Through education, you can actually, achieve your dreams. So maybe to you, Lord Chief Justice Emeritus, you've been very passionate about mentorship, and Lady Justice is also quite passionate about mentorship, both being mentored. It is often said that I can see further because I am standing on the shoulders of giants. What do you think would be the role of mentorship in helping people? Because there are many people viewing us today. They are saying, if Lady Justice could write a book, I think I can also write a book. If she was able to break the glass ceiling, I can do that. She came from the village, rose up to be where she is today, 35 years, How can I get there? And as a mentor, and of course, having risen to the highest office in the judiciary, what would be your message maybe to the younger generation who are saying, we want one day to get to the top of our careers?
Yeah, mentorship tends to be seen as something that involves two people. Okay? So it can be hierarchical. But I didn't encounter this word myself until probably after my university. It wasn't there when I was studying law. We talked of advisors, role models.
Yes.
You talked about what you want to become. And you could get that answers to those questions from the books you read, about certain professors, about certain theologians, and so forth. And even the people who are dead, but yet, they influence your intellectual and political and ideological, capacities. So, when I got to find people asking me, can you mentor me? That's when I realized mentorship has to be what I call reverse mentorship. Okay, reverse in the sense that you always learn something from the other person.
Yes.
Even if it's your granddaughter, you always find that she can mentor you on something that you don't know. And also mentorship is like a contract. It's not static. It can change. For example, I don't think Judge Ongeri, would hesitate to end a mentorship if she finds that a particular person has no integrity.
Yeah.
Okay, because you get that, from a book, from history. So there is something about mentorship that people think is permanent. It shouldn't. It should be something that benefits everybody. And you should breach that contract if you find, that it's not working. So I think it's relational. In fact, if you're involved in activism or some social movement, you find that the mentorship is based on everybody being equal. And what happens is that you look at the qualities of a particular person and their strength, okay? Because you are involved in a collective activity. So there are people who are very good at organizing things. There are some who spend time thinking. There are some who are teachers. And so in a movement or in a church, you know, you find that that category becomes, something else. But I think it's the best thing is where if it's two people, is where you ask the other person, what is it for me? If you are Gen Z, I want to know exactly what makes you tick, because I'm not in that generation, and it's a generation that is exciting everybody, and we want to find out exactly what the anger is about and how they want to solve it. So it's very fluid, but it's important. It's important because we all need help in various ways, and that's why the issue of faith, the issue of the Creator, is also another form of mentorship, because I think it's the Creator also gives you the leeway. I remember that story of who is it who killed his brother Cain, right?
Yes.
He killed Abel, and God was telling him that you have a free will, but there are consequences. So in a lot of disciplines, you find that happening. And of course, it's also a generational thing. You might, when she was talking to Judge Bosire, who was telling her, don't write judgments at home, you got to do it, in the courts. It was based on Bosire's experience as a judge. And he was telling her how to be effective. So still the relational one doesn't disappear. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I don't know, Lady Justice Asnap, maybe you can just add on to a bit of what His Lordship has mentioned about the importance of mentorship for you in your journey that also contributes to this book today.
Oh, yes. I also benefited from mentors.
Yeah.
And I have told a story where I was standing at the window of the office and looking at the car park. And I saw a Mercedes car driving in. And it stopped, and a lady came out. Someone ran from the front left seat and opened the door, and this lady stepped out. And I recognized her as one of the people who had interviewed me for the job of magistrate. She was a judge of the High Court. And I said, when I grow up, I want to be like her. And years later, we are now talking about many years later, I had now become a judge of the High Court. And I was stationed at Kericho, and I came with my driver and my usher. And we arrived at the Supreme Court building. And my usher came out and opened my door for me. And that flashback came.
Wow.
So there are people who inspire you. At the time when I became a magistrate, there were only 3 lady judges in the High Court. I've mentioned them in the book, and they were an inspiration to me. They had broken the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And those years there was no constitution, people were not applying for these jobs. And therefore, getting there for a lady, it was not easy. But I kept on trusting, kept on looking to my mentors.
Yeah.
And one day, I found myself now in the High Court. And now, when I talk to young professionals, I also encourage them to stick to their dream, no matter how long it takes. One day, they will find that they have reached where they wanted to reach in this life.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, and my co-moderator actually... Oh, you wanted to add something?
Well, I just concur with what she has said. It's all true for all of us. Yeah, there is somebody somewhere who really very instrumental to what we become. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so my co-moderator is younger than Judge, still in the judiciary. So how is mentorship important, especially maybe to you? And how do you relate with her story and her story in the book on mentorship?
Thank you, Lorraine. For me, in fact, I wanted to ask my Lord and my Lady. In the judiciary, we have this gap of judges and magistrates. So to me, mentorship, personally, at a personal level, mentorship is personal. I look at someone and I like the judge, I like what she does, then I talk to myself, this is my mentor. But the judges are very busy, magistrates are very busy. In some organizations, you are given a buddy coach. So I'm looking at a situation where when Emeritus was serving in the judiciary, we started having the mentorship programs, but we would have them in like a colloquium. So you'll find it's not very easy for you to have a personal mentor you're working with. Then with the transfers, I look up to Judge Ongeri as my mentor. She's now in Voi. When I call her, she's busy. So maybe, my Lord and my Lady, if you can comment on that, mentorship in the judiciary, how do we break that ceiling to just ensure that we have, now we have Gen Z, we have the millennials, there's that gap in the judiciary of the groupings. Then we have the magistrates and the judges. How do the magistrates get into the judges to tap that knowledge and get mentored?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I was in the judiciary, the fundamental issue we were engaged in was the transformation. And there were, specific issues like when it came to the issue of women. There were many women in the judiciary, but they were not in leadership. Okay, there will be the magistrates and there will be the cleaners, etc. Also, the salary disparities. So there were burning issues, that we dealt with. Although there was some, for my office, for example, I remember asking judges to start writing because I knew that the moment judges started writing, they were either transferred so that they couldn't continue. There were judges who came to me, like Meoli, and said that she did her master's secretly because she didn't want the judiciary to know because they would have stopped it. So in terms of, reforms, what I've called external, mentoring for everybody, making sure that there were those spaces, to do it. We also looked at the sexual harassment, and they came up with the policy, so that personal relationship, like the mentorship, can be abused, of course, sometimes. And so we made sure that happened, and action, can be taken. And I think also within the Office of Chief Justice, I think we created scholarships, and the Supreme Court had clerks who are involved in exchange. And the issue of clerks in the High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court was also part of that mentorship, reverse actually, because those who are doing your research and telling, writing briefs on what you asked. You're also learning from them. You're learning from them, and a lot of those people are either going to the university, to teach in the university, or they have become magistrates. And then there were institutional mentorships, like creating close ties between the academy, and the judiciary. Because you see, that constitution brought in changes that were amazing. Judges used to be picked from the judiciary itself. But after 2010, you bring in judges from universities, from corporate sector, from civil society sector, all right? So that it was a nice mix of talents and whatnot. And that was very, very, very helpful, particularly the institutional, the judiciary and lawyers. The lawyers, we always have this, we call it a learned profession, but we are very ignorant in other professions, okay? So what you did by becoming a pastor, for example, and writing books about faith, it's very, very, very important in the judiciary. Because I'm sure a lot of people would have said, no, write something on law, okay? Because of the way the legal profession feels that it's the learned one. And yet the Constitution itself says the interpretation can't be legal-centric, And the judges now, you see, there's a lot of religion, theology that is coming in the courts because of the Constitution itself, which in the preamble says we acknowledge the existence of, supreme, the Almighty God, of all creation, and their beliefs are protected, and so there are theological, arguments coming into the judiciary. So if you have a judge who is well read, in terms of the scriptures, you can imagine, and there is a bench that is dealing with a particular theological question, you have that experience, inside. So, but they were very urgent, matters, but I can think of those of basically getting people who do your research, and they are young people, and you interact with them, and they actually teach you because they are the ones who have done the research. Yeah.
I wanted to add something.
Yes.
So I also feel that mentorship even begins from a very early age. Because I remember when I was in primary school, my grandfather, who never saw the inside of a school, could always make it a duty to come to school, see the headmaster, and find out how the grandchildren are doing. And then from there, put us together and start to counsel us how we should conduct ourselves, when we're in school and the like. And, it gave us that, momentum that, we want grandpa to be happy, And, I found that was quite transformative. Then came my mom, my mother, great mentor, went up to class 1, but knew that as a girl, she'll tell you as a girl, that, the thing that is going to help you, help you really transform yourself and the family is education. So that any time you could come from school and she doesn't see you having 3 exercise books, 3 pencils, 3 rubbers, because if you have that, then you have been position 1. Then, now, there she will ululate in the kiss style. Then we find that the teachers, primary school teachers, the master and the like could call us and tell us, you are my daughters. Yeah. And I believe in you. You will make it. Don't be discouraged by this voice. We used to be bullied. Yeah. Don't be discouraged. Push on. And I will tell you, I found it very, very transformation. And the high school we went to, oh my God. I think if there was anything that really brought a turnaround, it's the high school. So that you find now, finally, when you transition, after university, you transition to work, that becomes an add-on. You're already grounded. You know what you're looking for, you know, in the people around you asking the right questions, where can I go to, and the like. So it is very important that I feel that beyond now this book launch and the like, we need to go to the ground, we need to go to the communities to engage with the young girls. And also positive parenting, very important. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. So those of you watching, our viewers, please note that you can get the book. It's available. If you want a signed copy, you can get it at knowledgefortransformation.com. I'll read that slowly so that you can get it. Knowledge for Transformation, just the way I'm reading it, no spaces in between, .com. And you'll be able to get yourself a copy of The Making of a Judge. And that's our key discussion today and the themes in that book. So I think my co-moderator still has a few questions for you, Lady Justice. So maybe she can ask one or two and then we can continue from there.
Judge, maybe to those who are aspiring to be judges, your book is titled The Making of a Judge. It's a vigorous process for those of us who've seen how a judge is interviewed. For you to become a judge, we believe initially we thought a judge must have gray hair. Yes, it's actually a vigorous process. So what is your message to those who are aspiring to be judges?
To be a judge is a noble career. Actually, it is God who is the righteous judge. And those of us who are Christians believe that this world will end with judgment. And therefore, those aspiring to be judges, my advice to you is that you judge for God. You have got to be a person of integrity. You've got to do the right thing. Judge cases according to the law and to the facts, not according to your personal persuasions or influence from other parties. So I encourage many young people to take up this career. It is a noble career. There is mighty satisfaction when you listen to parties and write a well-reasoned judgment and met justice. I call the part of delivering judgment the fruit, because the fruit has to be sweet. And when you do the right thing and you met judgment, you sentence someone who is guilty, or you set free someone who is falsely accused, you go home and sleep like a baby. Then you are very happy because you have done the right thing. I encourage many young people to take up this career. It is a noble career as a lawyer and as a magistrate and as a judge.
So no shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
They should work their career ground up.
Yes. And you must work hard in school. I remember this one incident where I mentioned this young lady who is my mentor. She was teaching in secondary as an untrained teacher from the university when I was about to do my exams. And my father noticed I had a challenge in maths. I always tell young people, please work hard in maths. You will need it. As a deputy registrar, I know Linda does a lot of maths, taxing bills. So this lady noticed that I had a mental block. And she talked to me. I told her I do very well in all other subjects except maths. And I told her, those years we believed that maths was a boys' thing. And we girls were good in other subjects, but not maths. But because of that mentorship, she told me, go back and find out where did you start failing in maths. And I looked back and I found that in Form 2 somewhere, I developed an attitude that maths is a boys' thing. And she told me, if you want to go to that university you are talking about, work hard in maths. So I picked it from there. I revised, looked for a girl in my class who liked maths, talked to the maths teacher, and I was able to get to pass maths and get Division 1 and go to the university. So I'm encouraging young people to work hard. Work hard in all subjects. Work hard. I have seen people having challenges now with English. Yeah, if you don't pass in English, if you don't pass in maths, it will be very difficult to get into the law profession. So I encourage young people to work very hard and to read a lot of literature, read a lot of books, read widely.
Maybe Daktari and Judge, you've all heard that there are no jobs in the country, and young people have given up. They're saying we don't really need that education for me to get money. I'm better off doing other things than getting formal education. Maybe what is your take on that, Daktari?
Okay, now let me speak. Like I'm the chairman of the University Council.
Yes.
And for us, what we are telling our students, we are not training you to go and be employees. We are training you to be employers. Because if you look at all these countries that are actually don't have issues with jobs, it is because they have believed and supported startups. So that you find that before our students could graduate, we need to go through a motion where they could tell us, present their startups. So I want to tell you, I have this, I have that, and I need to be incubated. So we had an incubation program. So for me, it is one thing that this situation speaks to us to actually invest in what matters. How do we start investing in, bringing out those ideas, entrepreneurial ideas from our children, our graduates, so that you find that there are those who will end up becoming employed, but there are those ones also will create jobs, so that they employ much more than otherwise wouldn't be. So for those ones who feel like not disenfranchised, I will ask them, the basic degree or the basic certification you have, all it does, it gives you the powers to read and to do all that appertains to that degree. That means it equips you with the skills to think differently, to look at the world around you for opportunities, and also to know that opportunities are not only the white-collar jobs. They'll be surprised that even some of us, after getting our professional degrees, we still went back to things like farming. And it's very, very profitable. We went doing many other things, the home science, which we used to despise. Now you find that you're having a top-of-the-range restaurant and stuff like that. So those are the powers you get to read and to do all. So me, normally when I mentor, I speak to quite a lot of them. I tell them, stop complaining. What is it that you can do within your space? Is it a poultry business? Could I help you have like now an incubator and start a poultry program? If you look at the population, the way we are growing, by 2030, Kenya will be about 65 to 70 million. What will they be feeding on? They will need food. And you play a role in the food supply chain. What is it that you can do? So what we need to do, for me, is the mentorship. The mentorship to know that when you're going for field work in a farm, we used to go to rice fields, where we used to go to, Kisumu, whatever. You say, that is for somebody else, it's not for me. And yet, people have serious enterprises in that area. So there is what we can do as professionals now to mentor them and to help them to start kind of looking at opportunities, looking at the world, that there are opportunities. So even my own children, I'm a mother of 2 children, 2 boys. Both of them resigned from their former employment. They said their potential is being locked in. Their ceiling is determined. Said, I can have, and so they've started their own companies. It is very difficult to start. And that's where now we need to have the environment, an enabling environment for businesses, for small businesses to thrive. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think that there's hope.
There's hope.
Yes. I wanted to say the problem I find with education, I mean the way it's structured, is that we don't identify talents.
Yes.
And so it's like what we call a cut or dip, where you want all the animals to go in there and cure them of ticks and so forth. Our education system will have to do that, to see, and every mother knows that, like your mother, she could see your potential, but it can be killed within the education system so that it doesn't. And then there is the other thing that people should glorify. There are a lot of great people in the world who are self-educated. Okay, you might not go to a formal school, but the self-educated people have become great because even formal education has its limitations. So you find people like Malcolm X, for example. Malcolm X, he went to high school, then he got into crime, and he did his reading in prison completely. And then he became, a reader of everything. That's how he got into religion, into politics, into everything else, into activism. Mao Zedong, who became a general, a leader, also wasn't a graduate. And there is a Kenyan called Abdulatif Abdallah, who was a dropout. He quit school when he was in standard 7, but he was self-educated, and he started writing stuff as well, and became a professor. Who else do I have in mind? A guy called Hugo Newton, who was the leader of the Black Panthers in the U.S. Self-educated. So even that has to be glorified, particularly when some young people we don't have universal, education. But if you spot the talent, some, people can read. Although I think ideally education ought to be. You see, our generation, for example, my father was a tailor. There's no way he would have paid school fee at university or high school or wherever. But the colonial government that we sometimes attack, if you went to secondary school, the counties would give you bursaries. When you went to university during our time, the government paid tuition, paid you very generous stipend. In fact, in that we used to fly the East African Airways. It was, I think, 200 shillings, return. But the government paid that. But of course, this is a period of independence where you knew the moment you were done your all levels, you're going to get a job. But things keep on changing, and you can see you now saying that education requires, as you say, people focusing on areas that we used to say home sciences, for instance, or agriculture. I won't do this kind of stuff. But fundamentally, the issue that our kids are asking about jobs and so forth is fundamentally a political question. It's those who rule have to address those particular issues. And you will never give young people jobs if the stealing continues, the wastage of resources. You need to be in the public service to see how resources are wasted. Yes. Oh yeah, but you see it, MPs going for retreats when they should be in their offices and so forth. And wastage, I mean, people hiring jets to go to meetings and so forth. When the easiest thing for me is we buy the president a jet, which can cross the Atlantic. I think the one we have can only fly to Dubai. That way, that one stays. Yeah. So I think all I'm saying is we need, just like health and like food and everything else, because the resources are ours, right? We need to make sure our leaders are really accountable and they do the right thing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'd like us to try and wind up our discussion today. So I'll just ask each of you, maybe in 2 minutes, to just give us your takeaways from the book and maybe lessons that you want to share with those that will be watching and joining this book launch. But for you, Lady Justice, maybe you can just tell us maybe 2 key points that you are communicating in the book and why those that are in this launch should ensure that they rush and get a copy now as we speak. Yeah.
I think for me the most important thing is the theme of having faith.
Yeah.
Because I must say that many people think faith is a thing of the past or something that is not relevant to modern society. But I trace my journey to this point as having been guided by God. I was excited about the new constitution of Kenya 2010, and 2 of the things that made me very happy is the fact that it recognizes God and acknowledges God in its preamble, and also Article 159, which tells us the principles to use as tribunals and courts, and among them, alternative justice systems, reconciliation, mediation. And in my book, I have talked about my own personal transformation before the judiciary transformation framework by Chief Justice Emeritus, Dr. Willy Mutunga. I had already started that transformation. Transformation starts with you. I think my message is that be the change you want to see. And I believe that my journey of faith brought me to where I am. I recognize these as footprints of faith. And these are stories that shaped my life. And I want them to encourage someone who thinks that their dreams are far-fetched or not attainable. Wherever you are, whoever you are, you can attain your dreams.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe we can go to you, Dr. Nyakang'o. Maybe you can tell us yours. And then CJ Emeritus will share his. And then my co-moderator will close for us the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the 3 takeaways from her book is that education can transform lives, can transform you as a person from a very simple girl, and in the place she grew up in, and probably walking to school barefooted. Measuring the temperature, we call it you're measuring the temperature. Your foot is a thermometer. So it can transform you from that poor rural village girl to really a judge to the highest position even in the land, and probably a potential Chief Justice, which she wouldn't have been without it.
Yeah.
But also, too, is that she becomes like the beacon in the society, and is able to touch life and be an example, to other children and girls who are also aspiring to get that level. And then, of course, lastly, is that it opens opportunities beyond just being a judge. She's a writer now. So this is what I was saying, when you've been given the powers to read and to do all, you can do everything.
Yeah.
She's now a writer.
Yeah.
And I think she did indicate that she's going to be she's alternative
Justice system.
Justice system. That's her next passion. So it's really it's wonderful, and I feel that the legacy she has created, this imparting knowledge by documenting it in the form of a book is very, very, very important. Should impact generations and generations to come, long after she's gone. And she has touched me. I probably am going to also think of doing my chronicles. Yes.
Wow. Okay. To you?
There are many, takeaways from this book. I've mentioned some, but I think the major audience, apart from the ordinary people, is an institution that is so pivotal in this society. I always tell people that if the judiciary collapses, it's then no other institutions will follow suit. It's the only one that has the courage that you can run there, and get justice. And even those people who used to think that they wouldn't require the judiciary, I guess people should go and talk to Uhuru Kenyatta and the Matiang'i. That when that happens, you have to go to the judiciary. That's how Uhuru's kids had their licenses, and their guns, retrieved. So I hope the judges who read this, and it also tells a story. See, when people say that the judiciary is corrupt, in most cases people tend to say no. These are people who are saying this and the other. Judge Ongeri gives incidents, and it shows one thing that is important for people to know, that a lot of corruption is actually carried through the lawyers themselves. There's a story there. You will read, about that. And also, there are cases. I think she discusses a painful case, which I read, and that's when I realized this country has cartels. This is somebody who wants to evict people who have built structures in parklands, and then although the judge doesn't say exactly what happened, but this person gets himself charged for building illegal structures. And he goes to court and he tells the court, I plead guilty, but don't be harsh on me because I'm going to destroy them. And then he destroys what were not his structures. All he wanted was to build a skyscraper there. So for judges, some of these stories, like where judges are maligned, how do you deal with that case? And you are a mother, and you are a wife, and you have children, and there are bloggers and other people basically saying you're corrupt or saying, telling lies. Filing a suit, you need defamation, and liable is not enough. Okay, so there are all those trials and tribulations, and I think what Judge Ongeri is telling judges is that unless you have an anchor, And in our case, it's faith. You can't really survive it, you know, because there's a lot of you know, problems that goes, you know, in the institution, and maybe that's why she lasted that long. I didn't last more than 5 years. It was 5 years, and I could still feel. I always tell this story that when I was going home after I retired, I found myself the next morning, you know, in the bathroom singing, "I'm free at last." Thank God Almighty. Yeah, it's unless you have an anchor, unless you have an anchor, and I think this is a major lesson I found in that book. You know, faith is important, and without it, when she got attacked, you know, she would have just become sick or whatever. And the other aspect that I saw that resonated with me is the whole question of your health, because she tells the story about her health, okay, that it's so critical, and she advises people on what to eat, and because she went through that, and she gained energy, and because the judicial, of course, requires somebody who is, you know, very, very, very healthy. So it has a lot of the, you know, takeaways. And this thing she was saying that why she wanted to be a judge. I've realized in real life people join disciplines because they are mobilized by something. Okay, I found a lot of women in human rights work who are passionate because they were abused. And they basically said that I will be the last person to be abused. So they start fighting, you know, against that. But I think it's, and the last thing I wanted to say is a story that is brilliantly told. You know, you can read that book in, I guess, 2 hours.
Wow.
You know, you 2 hours. Yeah, it carries you along, and there is a story after story. There are stories that will make you, you know, cry, because, and that empathy, you know, judges have to have it. You know, so there is everything. I hope when it starts, when it's out, the first thing we'll do is to get the Chief Justice, buy every judge and magistrate a copy. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Laureen. For me, the lessons learned go beyond the courtroom. Whether you're a lawyer, a magistrate, a judge, or any other person just seeking wisdom, the lessons learned go far beyond the courtroom. And judges and judicial officers don't really tell their story. We are very conservative when it comes to our personal stories. In court and outside court. You'll find many a times they say if you're a magistrate or a judge, you'll not get married. Yes. It's difficult. But here is a story of a judge, a mother, a wife. Yes, so the lessons learned to me are very, very good lessons to all of us, and they go beyond this platform.
And there are men who are progressive, who allow their wives to be judges.
It's transforming.
Yes.
But not very fast.
It's always slow. Patriarchy is...
All right. I think one person said something. They said, for women, the best career choice you can ever make is the husband you choose to get married to. So I think you made a very good choice. and so we appreciate your husband and of course your family. You acknowledge them at the beginning of the show. And so we say thank you to them for sharing you with the rest of us and the world, that we are able to benefit from your experience, from your knowledge, and of course from your service to the nation of Kenya and the nations beyond. So thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity to thank all those who are watching us today. We are launching the book, The Making of a Judge. It's a beautiful book and you need to get yourself a copy. We have told you can go to knowledgefortransformation.com and you'll get a signed copy immediately. It's not something you have to wait for it to be shipped. You get there, you will be able to get your own copy so that all these stories that we are talking about, you'll be able to read them, get inspired, share the links with others so that they can also be able to gain from the wisdom and the knowledge that is in this book. Again, we are on social media. Lady Justice Asnath is on social media. The links are showing currently on the screen. Please make sure you go there, follow, like, share, so that this message can go far and wide, because we want to be able to share this message of faith, message of transformation, message of, shattering glass ceilings, especially for women. So please get yourself a copy and make sure you tag us once you share anything that you've read in the book on social media. So thank you to our guests. Thank you so much for being part of this discussion today and for your immense contribution this evening to this discussion. Viewers, we are not done yet. We will take a very short
to ask you, what do you think of Mom's book?
Well, I like the book. In fact, I love it because it is her story, but also it's my story by design.
How is that?
Because much as the book is about her profession and her journey, I picked up with her when she was fairly young and when I was also fairly young. And so from that point on, our lives have been intertwined.
So you could say that you were living vicariously through her. So it was her story, but you lived it as well.
Yes, I did. And that is what makes it interesting to me. But it would also be interesting to the reader. Not necessarily me, because of the inspiration, the resilience that has been her journey.
So could you tell me what's your favorite part of the book?
It's hard to pick a favorite part, given that it is about somebody's life and experience that you have been a part of. But I'll pick that which I think directly relates to both our works, and that is the chapter on hazards in the place of work.
Okay. Could you read it for us?
Yes, the chapter on hazards in the workplace reads like this. Other than being vulnerable to corruption, the other workplace hazard I have experienced as a judicial officer is people using known associations to solicit for bribes. I remember of a staff who worked in the human resource department. He used to come to our shared chambers with a colleague, purportedly just to say hello. We worked on the same floor with the human resource department. One day, we wondered aloud why this man regularly stopped to say hello Incidentally, the colleague became a judge earlier than me and is still serving. Our speculation about his intention ended when an elder in my church revealed that the fellow had told his relatives who had a case before me that I had sent him to collect money on my behalf. The church elder believed I would do no such thing. On that day, when the fellow came in, relatives of the elder were indeed left standing outside. I would never have known that somebody was peddling my name to solicit for money, were it not for the elder who knew me well as a person of integrity and informed me of the shenanigans. He was certain I was not the kind to engage in any shady corruption. Disgusted, I reported the matter to the registrar of the High Court, but the man was merely transferred to my great disappointment. The greatest hazard that a magistrate or a judge faces is when persons solicit bribes purportedly on their behalf, yet they have no idea this is going on. In this case, I was lucky that the elder knew me and personally, and he told me about it. My husband worked in a premier referral hospital in audit and finance. He told me of cases where crooks would solicit bribes, purportedly on behalf of senior doctors before surgeries were performed. The crooks turned out to be con artists. I then realized that these hazards are inherent in other professions too. To deal with corruption, the great monster has to be detected and reported. Do not give in when no action is taken against folks who practice corruption. My institutional memory serves me right that God always vindicates his own, though they suffer long and are sometimes falsely accused. There is mighty satisfaction derived from doing the right thing and upholding the right values at work and in the world. Every time I delivered a judgment, I went back home and slept like a baby. I harbored no fear because I was sure that God was with me always. That is the chapter that I found interesting.
And it resonates with you, I guess, because you had a shared hazard.
Yes, it resonated with me, and it also resonates with other professions.
I like that. I'm going to read you my favorite, and you'd be surprised. It was when I was growing up and we moved houses. So I'm going to read you a chapter called Moving to Riverside. So Ngumba is an estate in the Eastlands of Nairobi, just off the Thika Highway, hemmed in between Kenya Breweries on the west and Moi International Sports Center, popularly known as Kasarani Stadium, on the east. When I joined the judiciary of Kenya as a magistrate, our rented residence was in this estate. Though our first child was born in Nyeri, as in first child me, where my husband had been working with the government, our second born was born while staying in this estate. At the time, the only road was through the brewery, and public transport vehicles were not allowed to access it. This made it a quiet, small estate. We found this convenient. My husband would drop me at work, but depending on how my work was, sometimes he would go home ahead of me by public transport. It was on one such occasion, during the reign of Chief Justice Hancock's, as I was heading back to my house along Thika Road, that I noticed a person seated next to me in the public transport vehicle looking at me. By this time, I'd been a judicial officer close to 3 years. Eventually, when I reached my destination, I threw a quick glance at the fellow. I could not believe my eyes. It was the very man that had had a case in my court, charged with the offense of obtaining money by false pretenses. I had been sitting next to an alleged conman whose case I was handling. The day after that scary incident, I talked to the CJ about my predicament, and I was allocated a house in Riverside. This was despite the fact that married women in government service, by some draconian regulations, were never entitled to a house or a house allowance back then. It was a period when discriminatory practices against married women in the public service were a policy and a norm. Never be afraid to ask for what you deserve. Those discriminatory regulations were later changed, and all government employees, irrespective of their gender or marital status, were entitled to and were given a house or allowance. Since that time, I have always lived in the Government of Kenya quarters. The bewildering thing is that my husband's 3 names, Gilbert Ongeri Kambuni, GOK, have the same initials as the Government of Kenya. Even after I resigned from the judiciary, I providentially returned to the same premises. I've now concluded that the initials GOK stand for God's own kingdom. There is a song I love to sing which says, "O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home." Indeed, God has been our home. Our GOK house has always been unique and beautiful. There are times when my husband sings on his guitar that we've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are of purest gold. 2 things make my moving to Riverside quite memorable. The first is that it was in the backdrop of a government policy that prohibited married ladies from being allocated a government house, in addition to being excluded from house allowances. I put a spirited argument before the CJ, who saw sense in the argument and ordered that I be allocated a government quarter immediately. The discriminatory policy against married women was 2 years later removed, and for that, I'll always be grateful to this considerate and progressive Chief Justice. Every city in the world has its high-class estates and suburbs. Nairobi, therefore, is no exception, and its high-end suburbs were Muthaiga, Lavington, Karen, Kileleshwa, and Riverside was not left far behind. For a young magistrate, making this huge transition obviously was something to remember for long. In the equivalent of development, it was like moving from a third world nation to a first world, and therefore, this is the second thing that made it memorable. Recently, I visited Riverside Drive for old time's sake, but I couldn't believe my eyes. The exclusive neighborhood was nowhere to be seen. There were only skyscrapers. The river is no longer visible, and the water in the river is no longer clean. My sweetest memories of Riverside Drive are early morning prayers when I recited Psalms 23, and I could actually feel God's hand leading me through still waters. I could feel the sound of the waters. The next Chief Justice was Justice Cocker. Cocker remains the humblest CJ I've ever known. He drove himself in a Peugeot 504 and refused to move into the official residence of the Chief Justice. I admired and was always inspired by his humility. His tenure was surprisingly brief, so I do not have any interaction with him. I remember moving to Riverside, but for different reasons. I remember that when we moved into that house, I think at the time, government residences used to have like furniture that you found pre-installed in the house. So you'd get like a cooker, seats, tables, chairs. And I remember in Riverside Drive, there were toys. Like walking into a brand new house and finding toys that were there from the children that lived there before. So that was my moving to Riverside moment.
I remember that.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I don't remember how old I was. I just remember the toys, and I remember there were
can
Legos
remind
and
you,
things.
You were actually about 7 years old.
Probably. Yeah, the same age as my daughter now. Yeah, that's
you
probably.
were about 7 years old, and it was a good place to live in.
It's interesting that I never knew that Mom was moving there, and there was a whole policy that prohibited married women from getting houses, which makes it that much more special. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it also tells you the journey of the author of this book, because she has surmounted all her life many challenges through determination. And this
prayer.
was one such case, and prayer. And it fits into being an inspiration to somebody else who may have felt like you can't make it, the odds are stacked up against you. But yet, if you read this biography or memoir, you'd also be encouraged to know that it's not a story, it is somebody's life, and it is something they have achieved, it is something they have gone through, it's something they have attained, and that you too, you can do it. And that is why I would recommend this book to anybody, and more especially the young people who are making career decisions, and the young girl child, even the boy child, that to read through this book, you can realize that when you find people where they are, they have not gotten there through a smooth path, but that they have gone through challenges that if you look at yours, you may say, even me, I can make it. Even me, I can overcome these challenges, whether it is school fees. Somebody somewhere paid her school fees for free. Whether it is career choice, somebody somewhere discouraged her from certain career choices, but down the line, she changed her direction and got to the career that she wanted.
Thank you,
And
Dad.
so I would recommend this book to even the professional who thinks that they are the only ones who have been tempted through corrupt practices and persons who want to practice corruption, for you to realize that there are others who have been tempted and said no.
So you can
I know there is a chapter I did not mention which is interesting on corruption. It is where she was working as a magistrate in city court, and I happen to have been part of that story again, because the person who tried to bribe her so that she could sign off the land of a charitable organization, when they found that they could not convince her, they did their homework and knew I work at Kenyatta at a hospital, and one morning I find somebody visiting me, and they are asking me to intervene. And my answer to them was very simple, that my wife and I agreed not long ago that none of us will interfere with the other's profession in that regard. But however, I did my homework and realized that the land they wanted to grab was at that time worth over 500 million shillings. And that chapter is in this book. And she stood firm and said no, even when the forces were stacked against her. So it can be done.
Thank you for that, Dad. And I'm sure whoever reads this book will not only be inspired, but will want to just rise up above the challenges that are thrown their way. They'll know that whatever it is, it's not insurmountable.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I recommend it, not because she's my wife, but because it's a good book to read.
So welcome back, everyone. And I hope you've had an opportunity to grab a cup of tea, network, and recharge. We are excited to welcome you once again to the next part of our book launch, The Making of a Judge. I'm your moderator, Linda Mumasaba, and I now hand over to my co-moderator, Ms. Lorraine. Over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you very much. So I hope you indeed are having that cup of coffee. And as you can see, we are ready to dive into this discussion again. and just talk about the book, talk about the author, and talk about what we can learn from this book. So as you can see, our author has changed. We didn't get the memo. The co-moderators didn't get the memo. But we will shortly, maybe after this, when we take a break, I will be able to change as well. But she's looking fantastic. So, Judge, we are happy to have you here again. So maybe we can have our new set of guests introduce themselves, and then we can pick it up from there. So I'll start from my immediate right. Please introduce yourself. Let the viewers know your name, what you do, and maybe a relationship with the author.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Millicent Onyonyi. I am in the oil and gas industry for a long time, but my relationship with Judge here is I've known her as we've been raising our daughters. And that is how far back I know her. And I'm so glad to be part of this journey with her and to support her as she talks about her book.
Wow. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you. You can also introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm Peter Nyagah, pastor Nairobi Central SD Church, and the author of the book is my church member and a family friend.
Oh wow! All right.
Yeah.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. So I don't know if you have any questions for our author or any of the guests.
Maybe to our author, Judge, my lady. I'm just wondering, what inspired you to include success stories in your book, and how have they inspired your audience? You know, being a judge and the stories, most people know that a judge's stories are never told, but I'm just curious to know what really, really inspired you to have the success stories in your book. Yeah.
Once again, this story is my song and my testimony. Personally, from the place I am in society and being an avid Bible student, I know the end of all things has come. And I believe that what is remaining now is telling of the gospel.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says that the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to all the world as a witness or as a testimony. So this story is my testimony. My song. I want to encourage someone that despite going through challenges, delays, outright opposition in attaining your dream, you can still do it with resilience and faith. For me, it is footprints of faith, the stories that shaped my path.
Just as you talk about faith, Judge, I'm also wondering your faith and the profession. Is it really I think it's challenging with the nature of your work. Maybe you can just comment on that, your faith, how you integrate the faith and your professional work.
I believe that faith is what brought me to where I am today. I personally believe that being a judge, you do this work on behalf of God. So I take my work seriously, and I know that a time is coming when even the judges will be judged.
And I've seen you've quoted that in the book.
So my faith has been a key component in my journey in this life. It's because of faith that I am here.
Wow. All right, maybe Pastor, then we can pick it up with you, just from where she left off. Because there are certain professions that people say are incompatible with faith. So what is your view in regard to the role that faith plays in the life of professionals?
Wow, a very good question. Now, faith and professional, I'm looking at it that as a pastor, I always think through the scriptures.
Yes, yes, that's all right.
And what comes to my mind is Colossians chapter 3, verse number 25, that says, whatever your hands finds to do, you do it with all your might. Now, faith is not limited to Sabbath worship or Sunday worship. Now, it should be integrated in our workplaces, in our professions, because faith instills integrity, resilience.
Yeah.
when you look at the biographies in the Bible,
Yes.
you see people who are very, very resilient in their life. And so when you focus or fashion your life after those characters, it automatically gives you out of resilience. And also again, faith embraces community. So it helps you then, even at the workplace, you're able to coexist with your colleagues. And because, then I'm serving not just these people, but I'm doing it on behalf of God. So to me, faith and professionalism is very, very key for anyone who wants to have a very impactful service.
Okay, thank you. Again, still just on the question of faith, what in your view is the role of faith in terms of just giving us a moral compass in professional life? Because Judge has made faith one of the pillars, actually, she extensively talks about in her book. So how does that faith then help us have a moral compass in what we do?
Just like I've mentioned about integrity issues, faith helps us to make decisions. And decisions that are aligned with the principles of God. It comes as a result of what you call, from biblical perspective, the fear of God.
Yes.
So anyone who serves and he is ordered in his thoughts and in his heart by that simple thing called the fear of God, that in the moments of making decisions, they feel more responsible to a higher being, a higher power than earthly power. So talk of issues like corruption. And I want to believe judges, they are so much tempted, because I have killed, I come and tell you, please help me. And so I can give you anything you want, please save me. So when you look at that, then the faith will remind this person that, I need to save this friend, but what does God expect of me in this moment? And I was going through, a book, and of course I found where she says, I judge for God. Okay? To me that was very striking. So I see faith, impact big way in terms of decision making, and also in terms of, dealing with people who come to you for help. You don't look at people based on how heavy or thin their pockets are, okay? You look at a case and you dispense with it based on merits of that particular case. But if you're not connected with God, if you're not a man or a woman of faith, then you're most likely going to lean on other factors. So yes, I find that it is critical, and I think the author of this book, in fact, as I was going through, I discovered it's a more spiritual book than a professional book.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. And I think for you, the question would be: she talks about faith. He talks about the role that faith plays in giving us an anchor in our professional life. But you have broken barriers in a very interesting area in terms of business. How has faith played a role in helping you break those barriers?
Yeah, I think as Pastor has said, and the author has said, faith is an anchor. As you go through your profession, there are a lot of challenges, and I think Sister Asana talks quite a bit about the challenges, in terms of making tough decisions, in terms of handling defamation, in terms of handling crisis. Without an anchor of faith, you will easily stumble. Or even when you do stumble, as a good song says, we have an anchor. So we are pulled back to, it holds our feet so that we don't lose ourselves.
Okay. So how did you break those barriers? Because she talks in her book about her being, first female judge in some of the court stations that she was posted to. So how do you then break those barriers for the sake of those that are listening to us, so that perhaps they can also borrow and get inspired from her story through you as you also tell your story?
So one of the things that she writes so beautifully about is relationships.
Yeah.
So the power of relationships. So there's a very big part of the book about who helped me here and who helped me there.
Yeah.
And she's not afraid of telling stories. I think some stories which are there's nothing ever too small in a relationship.
Yeah.
So she talks a lot about, first of all, her own family.
Yes.
Her grandfather, her parents, her husband, her children, and really that's key to breaking these barriers. It's very difficult to rise to the level that she has risen without the support of her spouse.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. I mean, I've risen to my level because of my spouse. Actually, sometimes I have to tell him, stop, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, because he's always like, you can do this, you can do this. I'm like, no. And I get the feeling about Elder Ongeri is the same.
Yeah.
He's always pushing Sister Asenat, go for it, go for it. So it's the relationships. And then she talks about the other judges, her friends, chief justices. So I think one of the keys really to breaking the barriers is developing good relationships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a very good point, and I hope those of you who are watching us are taking notes, because they are very, very important nuggets that the author shares in her book. And even as the guests are coming through and they continue to echo the same things so that we are able to learn and pick. And again, please remember to get a copy of the book. You can get it at Textbook Center, or you can go to knowledgefortransformation.com, knowledgefortransformation.com. Just type it in, you'll be able to get yourself a copy of the book, The Making of a Judge. So we want to again still talk about legacy building and the importance of telling stories and just inspiring other people. So maybe you can tell us, in your own view, how do you see the book, because you've already gone through it, and the importance of those stories to you as a person, because you also know her, and how you feel that will inspire those that are listening to us and will definitely buy the book.
So I think one of the things that you'll find in the book is reflections. And I read a quote once that said, the more reflective we are, the more effective we are.
Okay.
So she has a lot of reflections. And I think one of the things I should have said when I talked about relationships is sponsors. And so she thanks a lot of people to say, you did this for me. You did every little thing that somebody did. She talks about it. And I think that legacy is acknowledging people who have helped you through the journey. Legacy is reflecting even of the goodness of God through the journey. Legacy is leaving something for people. That's the problem actually of Africa. Actually, I read another quote, I seem to like these quotes, that says that when an old man dies in Africa, they die with a whole library. Because really there is so much they know that they have not shared. And I think Sister Asenat has done a wonderful job of sharing what it means for people to not believe in your dream, of sharing some cultural issues like, if you become a judge, somebody will not marry you, my child, don't do that. Of breaking the things that are sometimes stop us from going up to realize our potential. So this is legacy, is putting down these things so that generations to come can understand how far society has come.
Okay. Wow. All right. Thank you. So Pastor, maybe I come back to you and just ask, because Judge has been in the judiciary for over 35 years. And again, she still talks about her faith. Maybe you can tell us the role that faith plays in helping us to be resilient and to stay the course. Because her story definitely is inspiring to have done that for 35 years. And she's here now telling us in her book how she made it this far. So what is the role of faith in giving us resilience and helping us?
Thank you. Looking at her book and you know, I feel like I said, that book is full of faith. She begins by narrating her story from the early years of her life and how she has grown with a lot of setbacks. But then as we look at all those setbacks and how she was able to manage, go over those setbacks, then you look at a person who sees setbacks as opportunities for growth. You see, most people, when they're faced with setbacks, they shy off. They go complaining and murmuring and using other people as a scapegoat. But she was always there in every challenge because of the belief she has in God. She knows that God can manage this one for me. I see because of her faith, she's not able to quit, even when she's supposed to be quitting. Okay, that's faith. So when we look at the resilience aspect in workplaces, integrated with faith, then we see a person who is not able to quit because of challenges. And I've also seen what faith has done. She's allowed herself to be very vulnerable before us and everyone who's reading that book. Because, you know, I was reading and so where she would narrate when there's a time, I think you were being, is it removed from judicial? Something happened, I'm not remembering very well, and you went to fall down and said, crying and all that. I said, where's she giving all this information? Generally, we don't want people to see our weak points. Yes. But she feels that, no, how many people are going through such moments and they're keeping to themselves? So the faith she has allows her even to bring out those negative, if in quotes, things that we don't expect people to know about us, to use them as blocks to build other people, pulling them from where they are down there in the shackles of life and bring them up. So resilience is nothing but faith. Okay? The absence of resilience is quitting, which is an aspect of fear, doubting. But she believes not in herself, but believes in the one who has brought her through this journey. And maybe I need to ask her, maybe as she was going through all this, she would hear in her mind the reality of the scripture when it says, Asenath, I know the plans I have for you. And so when she thinks about that and knew that the plan, the Bible says, is to give you a future, to prosper you. So she can't quit. She stays there. And I pray that even others, we talk here because we are all in our professions and there are challenges. Don't quit. Stay put. Wow. Trust in the Lord. Yeah.
Amen.
And all of us say amen.
Amen.
Thank you for encouraging us. Just listening to you, Pastor, I think about how far, Judge, you have come, and I would want you to just add your voice to this by telling us how exactly did you deal with some of the lowest moments for you, because sometimes you're in court and because you have various parties, it could be advocates, it could be, staff, it could be, people who've come seeking justice. And sometimes they do things that you're left wondering as a judge, why did I choose to be here? So maybe you can add your voice to it so that we can hear how did you deal with those very, very low moments in your profession?
By sharing my stories, my victories, my failures.
Yes.
My main purpose is to inspire someone to trust in God, to know that we are not perfect, but God takes us as we are, and He teaches us to be what He wants us to be. So I have also made my mistakes. The story I talk about the morning of the trip to Isiolo was one of those where I was not in a very good mood. And therefore, I gave someone a dress down that was not necessary. But after God gave me a second chance, and now I became an author, I have looked for this advocate and profusely apologized to him. So I am attempting to tell others to trust in God. God takes us as where we are and makes us what He wants us to be. So I want to encourage someone that God loves us. No matter how we are, God loves us. And we can trust Him to help us overcome our weaknesses and also develop our strength. So I want to encourage someone to know that they can serve God from wherever they are. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the calling. And for me, my space in the judiciary is to stand for God. And one of my high moments is when I am asked to come and share, a scripture or pray for someone. I take it very well, and I see myself as being a missionary of justice, standing for God at my place of work.
Wow. Beautiful. I think I'm inspired already by the contributions that our guests are making, of course, plus the voice, your own voice that you add to this discussion. So as we prepare to wind up this particular segment, maybe I can ask you, Pastor, if you have any parting shot, anything you would like our viewers and those watching us to hear from you as an encouragement, having read the book.
Thank you so much. Of course, yeah. This is a life story that is packed with high moments and low moments. And I think is a typical example of what we all go through. Even our viewers and those who will read this book, they will find themselves in identifying with this book in various ways. My word to everyone is keep doing what you're passionate about. And do it in a way that you look back, you say, I did well. At times we regret a lot when we look back the path we have walked through. Because while we were there, we did not put our all in that. So today, where you are, put your all and involve God in what you're doing. Because, He is the one who says, I know the plans I have for you. So let's work with perseverance, but with a lot of integrity. Because integrity, it is aspect of being very open. It's an open book before the Lord. I have nothing to hide. The Lord is seeing what I'm doing. And if God approves of your works, the man will approve. So let's stop seeking approval from man, but let's seek approval from God. Because if God approves, man will approve.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe Millicent, you can give us your own takeaways from the book.
Yeah, I think my takeaway really is that faith is not foolishness.
Oh yeah.
It's I actually, as I read it and as I've watched her life, there's some things she says, that sound like, wow. I asked God I almost use my tithe, but I asked somebody and God came and said, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. It sounds like I'm reading the Old Testament. So it's you're not crazy. Sometimes the world makes you feel like you're crazy to depend on God. We are not crazy. Let's just hold on to our faith. It gives us hope. And one of these days, Jesus is coming again.
Wow. Thank you. I don't know if you have any parting shots for this segment.
Mine is just I'm just reflecting at the workplace. We have Christians, we have Muslims, and so, Judge, have you ever faced any challenge when you're openly discussing about your faith and your work, the profession, and how do you go about it? Then my parting shot is the success stories. I'm really inspired, and I'm telling many judicial officers and everyone out there, it's good to tell your story when you're alive. Let people not tell your story. Tell your story now. And I'm inspired by the author, my lady, who is telling her story while she's here. Rather than we have to wait, then we hear, oh, she did this, she did that. It's now.
Yeah, Linda, one of the things I wish to do is to inspire you too to write your story. I believe everyone has a story to tell.
I'm inspired, Judge, and I'm
only
working.
You can tell your story.
Yes.
And I believe that the world is waiting for your story. The only challenge I can remember, which I've written about in the book, is a Sabbath issue. For a long time, trainings were done on Sabbath.
Saturdays.
And being my day of worship, I never showed up in any of them. But later, I was to get a good training in Japan because someone said, this lady with her Sabbath, she never comes for training. And it reminded me of a verse in Isaiah which says that God will make you to ride in high places when you obey His commandments. And as I was flying to Japan, the first plane I took was not to Mombasa, but to Japan. I remember that verse and I said, Lord, you made me fly in high places and you're taking me to far-flung places. But now things have changed with the new constitution, that we are now able to participate fully, although not quite fully, because there are certain meetings which are still held on the Sabbath day, and then we find that we are kind of marginalized or left out. So apart from that, I have never experienced any other challenges, except again when I was in Gersen in Tana River, when I tried to do Bible studies, and I got a message on my mobile, tutakutuma kusimu. But I never got scared. My faith is my anchor. My God is my hiding place. And I spend a lot of time. Some of the way I debrief from all those cases which are sometimes horrible is to spend time praying and pray for those people. Praying has a way of relieving, you know, what you're going through, and like bringing these people before God and asking Him, please give me wisdom. But I always tell the parties when I deliver a judgment that I am not a final court of record. If I have gotten it wrong, go to the next level where it's the court of appeal and they sit 3 people. If I get it wrong, the 3 won't get it wrong. So my faith has been part and parcel of my journey. And I do not know where I would have been without having faith in God.
And Judge, I've seen you always start your virtual quotes and before you pray. I don't know whether you've encountered any challenge from the parties who appear before you.
Not at all. In fact, at times when I'm starting, like when we have been on recess or I've been on leave and I'm going back, I like to ask the parties, is there someone who would pray for us? And I know there are times when even a litigant in court starts praying, but some of them are tempted to argue their case in the prayer. So one time I asked, anybody who wants to pray for us? And a Muslim came forward and prayed. So I have not faced any challenge. And I think I'm excited about the new constitution because it acknowledges God, the Almighty God of all creation. I think that gave me a lot of encouragement to continue trusting in God and even to preach from my desk.
Maybe, Judge, the last part of it. What is your message to judicial officers who at times fear that I should not start court by a word of prayer?
My message is that we should not be ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God unto salvation for they that believe. Actually, the work of judging is godly work because God is the righteous judge. And this world will end with judgment. So I think we have to bear it in mind that even as we are judging, a day is coming when we shall also be judged. The world will end with judgment, and therefore we should be people who judge on behalf of God, who has given us this mandate to stand on His behalf, and we should do it with fear and not be influenced by anything other than the law and the truth.
Wow, wow. So viewers, remember this. Faith is not foolishness. Remember that you need to rise up even in the face of challenges, because it is possible, it has been done, it can be done. Also, we have been told that you should write your own story. Don't wait for other people to come and tell your story. So be inspired as you read this book to also tell us your story so that we can learn from it. And last but not least is faith has been an anchor for the author. And even for our guests here, as you have heard, faith remains the unshakable anchor So we'll be taking a break right about now and we'll be back. But as we take that break, again, remember you can get a copy of the book, Textbook Center if you need a physical copy, but you can also go to knowledgefortransformation.com and you can get yourself a copy of the book. So please don't touch that dial. We will be right back.
My name is Milkah Mukami, and I'll recite a poem by Patricia Riley dedicated to Justice Asenath Ongeri. Imagine a woman who believes it is right and good that she's a woman who honors her experiences and tells her stories. Imagine a woman who trusts and believes in herself. A woman who listens to her needs and desires, who meets them with tenderness and grace. Imagine a woman who acknowledges the past influence onto the present. A woman who has walked through her past and healed into the present. Imagine a woman who authors her own life. A woman who initiates, exerts, and moves on her own behalf. Who refuses to surrender except to her truest self and wisest voice. Imagine a woman who names her own gods. A woman who creates a personal spiritual journey that informs her daily life. Imagine a woman who believes that she is beautiful just the way she is. A woman who celebrates the rhythms and cycles and sees them as an exquisite resource. Imagine a woman who honors the goddess within her changing body. A woman who celebrates the accumulation of years and wisdom. Who refuses to spend her life's energy disguising the changes within her body and her life. Imagine a woman who values the women in her life. A woman who sits in circles of women, who is reminded the truth about herself when she forgets. Justice Asenath Ongeri, you are this woman. Imagine yourself as this woman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final segment of the launch of the book titled Making of a Judge. It's a fascinating exploration into the personal and professional life of the author, the Honorable Lady Justice Asenath Ongeri. And I am your moderator, Linda Masaba, assisted by my co-moderator, Lorraine. Over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you very much, Linda. We'll just have our guests who have joined us in this segment introduce themselves, and then we'll pick it up from there. So maybe we can start to the guest closest to me.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mbaabu. I'm here to share this moment with my dear friend here, and I'll be saying more about myself later.
Okay, thank you. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Duncan Okello. I served as the Chief of Staff to the Chief Justice, both Justice Mutunga and Chief Justice Nyagah. Currently, I'm at the Kenya Judiciary Academy, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our guests for creating time to be here. We appreciate that you have busy schedules, but you've taken time to just come and celebrate the author. We thank you for that. So I don't know if you have any questions to start us off.
Thank you, Lorraine. Mine will go to the author, my lady. You really focused on leadership in your book. And I'm just wondering, and my question to you is, what is your perception in the years to come on leadership in the judiciary or any other organizations? What is your perception on leadership?
Yes, one of the things I'm excited about in this book is that I had a dream. I chased that dream. It became a reality. Now I realize that I've got to look for a bigger dream and chase it as well. Life is like climbing, I say Mount or Ngong Hills. When you go to Ngong Hills, when you reach the top of one hill, you think you have reached the top, and then you see another horizon. So for me, now I'm seeing another horizon where there has been a transformation in the judiciary and in the way we do things. I call it a revolution, which was brought about by our Constitution 2010, where before the Constitution 2010, the judicial officers had a lot of authority. But now with Article 159 and Article 1, the power is with the people. So there's change, and therefore we have to involve others. That's why we talk about public participation. That's why we have court users committees. That's why now we are going from being the judge, the only one who dispenses justice, to introducing others like mediators, conciliators, you know, AJAs, and embracing alternative dispute resolution methods. So I see a shift. I see it as a revolution, only it was bloodless. And there's a shift in the way we used to do things and the way we do things now.
Okay. Wow. So maybe we can start with you, Mr. Okello. You can tell us, since you've been, in the judiciary. In fact, you were the first chief of staff under the new constitution of the judiciary, and now you are at the Judiciary Academy. What does it take to succeed in the judiciary?
First of all, let me congratulate Judge Ongeri for penning this publication. They say that if you want to immortalize yourself, either compose music or write a book, because generations and generations will always find that item accessible. So the judge, in penning this book, you immortalize yourself in human history. To your question, I think the book speaks more to success in life even beyond the judiciary itself. And I think the lessons from the book that I see are numerous. One, you need excellence to succeed in life, and even within the judiciary. Reading the judge's story and background and the barriers that she had to face and overcome in order to reach this level. It tells you one thing, that if you are a victim of prejudice, gender, race, culture, tribe, you need to be excellent to succeed. Average is not enough. So victims of prejudice or whatever category need to embody a certain and appreciate and exhibit a certain level of exceptionalism for them to rise. And I think that is the story that Justice Ongeri's life embodies. For her to overcome all this intersectionality of barriers, she had to have a certain excellent spirit that is uncommon, and it flows through the book.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's something you've touched on about the ability to overcome the challenges that come. Maybe you can tell us, in your view, and maybe also through the lens of the book, how do you manage challenges and barriers?
I think, first of all, you need to have clarity of ambition. What you aspire to should be very clear in your mind. And the judge was very clear from very early on that the apogee of my career will be judgeship and nothing else. And secondly, she exhibited the second point of determination and grit. Just keep going. You'll have waves and reversals, but you have to keep going at every turn and stage. And thirdly, barriers are only overcome if they are confronted. So we should not recoil when we face barriers. Oh, I can't do this because I'm so and so, society is against me, this gender is against me, and so and so, and so on and so forth. The overcoming of barriers only happens when they are confronted. And in that confrontation, there'll be success, but there'll also be scars. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those pointers. Viewers, I hope you're taking notes, because I've taken a couple of points that I will definitely be looking to implement in my own life. So please make sure you're taking notes. Remember, we are at the launch of The Making of a Judge, and you can still get a copy of the book, even though it's a virtual launch. So you can get a copy at Textbook Center, or you can check at the website. It's called knowledgefortransformation.com. So make sure you get yourself a copy. Now, maybe Dr. Mbaabu, let me come to you as well. You've heard what our other guest, Mr. Okello, has talked about, overcoming barriers, succeeding, excellence. Add your voice. What do you think it takes to succeed for a woman at this particular point in time?
Thank you very much. Let me go a little backwards and say how I met this girl. Let me call her that, because we started off as girls way back, like slightly over 40 years ago at the pre-university National Youth Service.
Wow.
And then immediately after that, we joined college, University of Nairobi, and studied law together. So I have had the privilege of knowing her for a long time. We were small girls then. Now we are older women. We are almost matriarchs, I would say. So through that journey, I have known Asenath quite well, I must say. One of the things I know about her is the use of what I would call soft power. She's full of humility, simplicity, humanity, and generosity, and a very humanistic spirit, if I may put it that way. When I or you interact with Judge, you wouldn't actually know easily that she's a judge, because she will interact with you at a very humane level, and she will impact her knowledge, her skills, her wisdom in a storytelling manner. She loves telling stories. And she has impacted many, many people far beyond the judiciary. So I'm so privileged and actually very proud to be seated here at the launch of her book, because it's a culmination of a journey through the barriers that you've talked about. She came from Kisii village, I came from Meru village. We met village girls in college. You shouldn't have seen how we were dressed then, and how shy we were, and how we were ready to conquer, like he put it. It wasn't easy to get that far from the village, first of all. And so the city, I tell you, the city was quite daunting, you know, and yet we knew it's not over. We are just beginning a new horizon where the barriers are not yet over. I'll tell you, even men used to run away from us, even young men, because they were so afraid of these soon-to-be lawyers. How would it be like, for example, to marry a lawyer or a judge for that matter in the coming years? So it was quite intimidating for us. We were fearful. We were unsure about where we were going. But I think what kept us going, and particularly for her, what kept her really going, I would say, was her deep faith in God. She has been a beacon of hope as well for many people. And we looked up to her to pray for us. In class, she used to do that, and you know she still does that. She's one of the judges who will take time and pray anywhere, anytime, and just say, let's invoke God into this meeting, which is a very peculiar thing to do, but also something that takes courage to do. So Asenath hasn't been the normal judge, I would say. She has exceeded her role, her expectations, because of the way she has put it. She's able to connect. She's not doing justice for the sake of justice, but she's thinking about transformation, transforming lives, transforming mindsets, helping everyone get to their destination, even those from, you know, underprivileged communities, villages, and so forth, to show you can actually make it. And she's an epitome of one who has made it through, you know, those ups and downs that she elaborates in the book. And so I really have in full trust and confidence in the book and everything she says in there, that it's actually based on personal experience, and therefore it's a book I would recommend to any young person, especially who is looking into, you know, setting out and getting higher and higher into the horizons.
Thank you. Wow, thank you, thank you. What a long, beautiful history with the author. I'm just curious, and maybe this question I can ask Mr. Okello. There's a very close-knit, I think, connection between the author's faith and her profession. And I think one of the statements she had made earlier is she wants to be a missionary of justice. So missionary here of justice, because she says she judges for God. But more importantly is she wants to spread justice across in a manner that reflects her faith. So maybe you can tell us, what does it take to be a successful missionary for justice?
I think first and foremost, you need to have a DNA for justice and fairness. You must love people to be a successful missionary for justice. If you don't love people, I don't think you can be a successful missionary for justice if you place profit or abundance over humanity. You can't be a successful missionary for justice. But there's also the place of spirituality. Belief there is no higher being in any religion that is unfair, that is unjust as a matter of principle. So a certain, you must be in touch with, I think, a bit of your spiritual side, however you want to label it. And I think reading the judge's book, you see those two elements satisfied. There's a very strong spiritual side, but she also has a DNA for justice and love for people. And it begins at the beginning of the book, where she demonstrates in that primary school with Atieno, and it's something she demonstrates in many other cases in the rest of the book. An eye for injustice and a courage to do something about it. So you must have a discerning eye, and you must also have the courage to live your values. And it is interesting when you read the book, this is the impact it had on me. I said, you see this discrimination against Atieno or somebody else, you are in an environment where there's abuse of power. You know, sometimes we think of abuse of power only in political terms, but there's societal abuse of power, where power is concentrated or is held maybe because of many people believe in a certain thing in a certain place. That's power, numerical power. And there are many instances where there are financial power, political power, personal power, cultural power. And I think the whole idea about justice is to take on power when it is being abused. And that's what I see in the book. And the bench by design, the judiciary by design in democracies, is counter-majoritarian. The judiciary did not just uphold that which the majority wants, but it must validate minority rights. And I see Judge Ongeri in those instances being a judiciary even then by being counter-majoritarian. You are discriminating against these individuals because of who they are. No, you are not going to do that when I'm here. So it looks like from the beginning, a judge was made.
Wow, wow. Well, what a powerful statement that was. From the beginning, the judge was made. Yeah. Now, maybe just to follow on that question is because there are many challenges that judicial officers face. She has mentioned some in the book, but what would be your message perhaps to somebody who is reading that book and says, I also want to be like Justice Ongeri? Because she has given her personal story, but you have sat at a point where you are able to have an overview of the judiciary, you know, as chief of staff. So what would be your message to somebody who says, I want one day to have my own book with my own story, but I want to be able to get there? What would be your message to such a person?
I think probably just to expand it a little. First, I would, just from that book, it is evidence of the fact that we should never be permanent victims of our own history and circumstance. Let us not, and this is mainly for young people, do not invoke your disadvantage as a permanent excuse not to achieve. if the judge wanted to perpetually play victim, she would have given up a long time ago. So I think that's the first thing. History and circumstance, especially when they are negative, should not necessarily determine outcome and fate. Then number two is success in life is not a superhighway. If you read the book, the twists and turns in the judge's career and the difficulties at certain points were circumstances that would have broken anyone. But she didn't allow that to happen. So sometimes when we see the glitter of this, on the cover of this book, and we see this successful High Court judge, we don't price open and see what has it taken to get there. So success is not about, it's not, as I said, a superhighway. It is just determination and grit. There'll be disappointments along the way, but you pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and move on. That's the second point that I want to make. And then thirdly, again, just based on stories in the book, accidents of history can also be opportunities for history. So there are many accidental encounters, both literal and metaphorical. You happen to be with that here in this school, not you are doing, that was accidental. But that act had such significant impact on the judge's life and philosophy of life that it's amazing, but it was just accidental. So an accident of history became an opportunity for history. The accident itself, now the motor vehicle accident itself, again became an opportunity for making history. She had many other accidents in the court, in Tana River and Lamu. And those accidents, both for her and the litigants in court, ended up being opportunities for history, even for those litigants who suddenly had to got their freedom, because by act of accident, they happened to have had this humane judge in Turkana. A different judge may have reached a different outcome. So let's not take random contacts or encounters we have with people for granted. Sometimes it is a command from higher up to make humanity better. I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, you have, and I just hope our viewers are really taking note, because you've made some very, very important points there. I think my key takeaway just from what you've said now is do not invoke your disadvantage, or history as an excuse. Okay, very, very interesting, and let's take note. Okay, so back to you, Dr. Mbaabu. What do you see perhaps as the next phase? You've known Judge since you were young village girl. What do you see as maybe the next steps?
There's something so important that Judge said, and she used the symbol of the Gong Hills, where I actually come from and live. And she talked about how you climb a hill and think that you're at the top, only to find another, horizon. Judge has been on that journey. I remember her even way back at City Hall as a magistrate, finding people for traffic offenses and what. And through that, the meandering that we are talking about, she's where she is. And just now where she's at, almost at the tip of her career as a High Court judge, she has begun having another view beyond the hill that she's now climbing. And I've been very fortunate to be part of that unfolding view, the new horizon that she's facing. We reconnected very well with Judge a few years ago in the corridors of something not judiciary, but something we call mediation and conflict resolution. She alluded to it earlier on. And that's a space I have been for a few decades now. And it was let me say, sort of a radical reconnection, because our paths crossed again in a very, not accidental, not even coincidental, but gone incidental, if I may put it that way. And we were both talking about transformation and how we've used law as a tool for transformation for many years, justice. And she was like, I have a ministry in my heart. And this is the ministry of reconciliation. And she's trying doing that very much as a judge. And I commend you for that, my friend, because she calls me and gives me stories of how she has actually managed to make litigants to mediate and resolve disputes and go home, happy, shake hands, and rebuild their relationships. That's the side of the coin of justice that we call peace. So when peace and justice converge, reconciliation happens. So the judge is at the tip of her career as a judge, and she's coming again from this other direction as a peacemaker, especially from her faith perspective, because I know that's what she's been doing at the church and in the community. And that's now converging into a reconciliator. And allow me to say that when we speak, she tells me, my friend, don't call me judge, call me mediator. And then her middle name is her pet name, Nyaboke. So she says, call me mediator Nyaboke. And I say, call me mediator Kagweria. So the village girls have teamed again. And here we are again, seeking to transform our communities through the Ministry of Reconciliation. That's the horizon that the judge is seeing. And I'm holding her hand since as her sister. I've been on that journey. And she's ahead of me in many ways, because she has had tremendous experience in her career as a judge and navigated lots of, hills and mountains and valleys and so forth. So she brings a wealth of experience as a judge, and then the faith perspective that we earlier talked about, the calling, where her career has moved to a space where she can actually say, it's her ministry, and that's why I think she calls herself a missionary, because she's on a mission to transform. And I like it that it's also converging with the place where the judiciary right now is talking about social transformation through access to justice. So she's at the right place also at the right time, where her calling is converging so well with the vision that the judiciary has to not just offer justice for the sake of it, but justice for the sake of transformation, social transformation, transformation of lives and mindsets, so that we can have a better Kenya, a better people, a better world. So I'm very excited for the judge, very, very much. Wow. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I don't know if you have any more questions.
Thank you, Lorraine. Just to add on what Mr. Okello and Ms. Mbaabu have said, the judge DNA when it comes to ADR is on another level, mediation and AJS. I remember when, Judge, you reported to the Civil Division, you told me that you want to train the judicial staff on mediation, and I was wondering, how are they coming in? So maybe, Judge, where is the place of, where do you see the judiciary in the next 5 years in terms of ADR? And what is your message to the lawyers? Because many a times you find the lawyers are not embracing mediation. What is your comment on that?
From my personal perspective,
yes,
I see that as the next horizon. I don't know about you, but society seems to be segmented, fragmented, and the kind of justice we met must be restorative. And if we say that the judges and the magistrates are going to do all the cases, it is sometimes overwhelming. I am excited about Article 159 of the Constitution, which gives us the principles to embrace when delivering justice. And they say, here are the principles. And among them, we are now mandated by the Constitution to promote reconciliation, mediation, arbitration, and all manner of alternative dispute resolution methods, AJS. And that's why the mantra of the CJ resonates with my next horizon, social transformation through access to justice. And it's like giving the society a role to play. You have given us the authority, but we're also giving it back to you. And that is why now we have quota next mediation, where members of the public train and they are given cases to help us resolve. And I think it's a good thing if we can bring healing to the people. For me, I believe that these are the last days, and the ministry of reconciliation is our last days ministry. When I read the Bible in the book of Malachi, the Bible says that before the great day, the great and terrible day of the end of the world, God will send Elijah. And what was the role of Elijah? Elijah reconciled Israel to their God. So we as judges, we are also to reconcile people. And I believe that except those cases which cannot be mediated, like cases where there is violation of human rights and criminal cases, every other case, in my opinion, should first be subjected to mediation. And only the very hard nuts to crack should now go through the court process. So I'm excited about it, and I call myself an ambassador of mediation. Of course, self-appointed. Nobody appointed me.
What about the defamation cases? Have you managed to have them?
Oh, yes. I talked about one, which was actually a 2005 case, where the plaintiff was an elderly man living in the UK. And the case was, it's the first case I handled in the division. And I'd been warned that, you know, when it comes to defamation people want money. They have been defamed and therefore they want money. But I decided to give it a try. And so the case had been allocated to me for 2 days. And you know, when cases have many litigants and many advocates, it's very difficult sometimes to get everybody together. So the first day, I was told one of the counsels is in the Supreme Court. And so I had to wait until 3 o'clock. When everybody finally logged in, there was another issue, because now we are doing it virtually and the documents are bulky, and I had to get them to access the CTS to look at the documents. So we said, okay, tomorrow we are starting this case at 8. We have 2 days to do this case. But before we logged out, I decided to preach mediation. So I decided to talk about mediation and how it is good and how people who have been hurting for years can get their healing. And then I remember the litigant from UK saying, if we start at 8, it's too early here in the UK. I said, no, let the lawyers log in at 8. When we are ready, I give time allocation, and then you will log in, we do this case. So the following morning, I woke up going to finish one of the oldest cases in the division. Only for the lawyer, for the plaintiff to tell me something wonderful. He said, Judge, there has been a new development. My client has never heard about mediation. and he has instructed me to ask you to refer this matter to mediation.
Wow.
And one of the defendants was also a very elderly Kenyan lawyer, and he was also said, I am also hurting. So I realized that mediation is the way to go. It is the future. And it doesn't matter the case, even defamation cases can be mediated. And so it's one of the success stories because it brought back a positive feedback. The case was settled. And I've written that as one of the success stories for mediation. I believe that these are the last days, society is fragmented, and mediation is the way to go. When we resolve cases through mediation, people walk away as friends, and the case, their dispute has been resolved, and there's healing.
Yeah.
The adversarial system which we embraced is not very helpful. It hurts, it takes long. So mediation takes only 60 days. And I've seen cases where people come back after 2 weeks and they have recorded a settlement and people go away healed and smiling. So I believe that that is our new horizon. I believe AJS is the way to go and to ask the people to help us help them.
Yes. The judge has said something that has triggered a thought in my mind. Just two things. If I forget the second one, remind me what was the second thing, and I remember what it is. Okay. The people-centric nature of Judge Ongeri is something that, as we said, is very self-evident. And even in this panel, her first response to the question about leadership was to pivot back to the people. Article 159 and judicial authority being derived from the people. And for the years that I've worked with her, I've observed that as well. At some point, she served briefly in the Office of the Chief Justice, the Office of the Ombudsperson, which was also just trying to make judiciary accountable. And she was at ease with that. Bring the judiciary closer to the people and making it accessible. But even more poignantly, I think when she went to be the first judge in Tana River, when the Chief Justice sent her there, she didn't complain. You know, that's also a security operation area. This was a lady, a mother, and a wife. And I must say, I'd never been to Tana River before. So I think she went there during Justice Mutunga's time. Then we visited Tana River with Justice Maraga. And I must admit I was shocked to see where she was operating from. That was not what was in my mind as Judge Ongeri was going there. And for the period, this was a small Mabati house that had been donated by Maendeleo ya Wanawake. That was the courthouse. Tana River is hot, and it's Mabati wall and roof. That's before we constructed a new court there, which is a beautiful prefab. So when I went there, I said, wow, there must be something so deep about Justice Ongeri to have served here without complaints, because judiciary tends to, yes, we know it. It can be a wailing wall of complaints. She didn't for all those years. So that struck me that, wow, you've been here for this year. I've never had a thing of complaint about how, quote unquote, inhabitable this facility is. So it speaks to her belief in service, missionary for justice, belief in humanity. And I've never told her that. That's something I really want to applaud. And the second thing, I had a second thing, reading this book about struggle. I thought I need to read your poem that I wrote some time back, very brief, very short. It's very short. It was like a minute or less. Okay. So when I was reading this, it crossed my mind. Yeah. And this is what it says. It is titled, Just Try. Sometimes I flail, not for want of trying. Often I fail when I try too hard. Occasionally I turn away when it is hard to try. A few times I run away when I've been hard at trying. But every time I say, certainly there's another way. Yeah.
I think we should end the launch at this point. Yeah, what a wonderful poem and a very, very strong message on resilience and always trying to, find a solution to every challenge that you face. Maybe you can tell us, Judge, is there any part of the book that you struggled to pen down? Perhaps, wondering whether you should tell it. Maybe it's a story that you are thinking, will the public receive it? How will they view it? Is there any part of the book that maybe you can share with us?
Yes. I must say that writing a story about yourself is not something easy. First of all, you have so much to say. My problem is, what do I say? What do I leave? So sometimes I had to ask my family, do you think the story should go out there? So I had to get their permission. But among the stories that were rather very difficult for me to tell is one that was the turning point of my life, where I went to court in the morning and I was not in the best of moods. And there was an old litigant who had made an application to be allowed to sue as a pauper. And magistrates are given that mandate to make the inquiry. So I had told her, come with your witnesses. And I think she had come with the chief and some witnesses. And she had a lawyer. And that was the day I was traveling. So I gave the file to my twin court and told her, please do this one for me. And she said, what's wrong with you? This lady has a lawyer. How can she say she's a pauper and she can afford a lawyer? I said, no, please inquire. Just maybe this lawyer is helping her. But when I went to court, the lawyer didn't cooperate. And so I lost my cool and I treated him badly, only for me to be involved in an accident that day. And I realized that I had to look for this lawyer and tell him I am sorry for what I did, but that was the turning point of my life. It wasn't so easy, but I had to say that a time comes in our lives when we have to change. We have to realize what we are doing is not right and change it. Also stories about moonlighting, how we were poorly paid. And therefore, I had to go and look for evening classes to teach, lunchtime, locums or assignments. And at one point I said, honestly, should I tell this one? But even the Bible contains stories of people the way they were, with their weaknesses, with their strengths. And therefore, sometimes I wanted to tell only the rosy stories, but I realized that for it to be a truthful testimony, I have to say this is where I've been, and this is where I am now. But most important, this is where I am going. I see a future. I see a career that spans now eternity, because I have come to realize that we are not in this world forever. Soon my time in the judiciary is over, and someone else will take over from me. But the most important thing is, where are we going after this? And that's why I finished with a story where I said that I didn't say everything. I tried as much, but we shall know everything when we are in heaven. And then I finished with the story of a small boy who was having a conversation with an atheist teacher. So the teacher was asking the boy, son, are you sure Jonah stayed in the tummy of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights? And then the boy said, teacher, when you're in heaven, I'll ask Jonah. And then the teacher said, suppose Jonah will be in hell. You know, we believe that depending on what you believe, you'll either be in heaven or hell. Yes. And then the boy said, when the teacher asked, suppose Jonah will not be in heaven, you'll be in hell. And then the boy said, with all due respect, teacher, in that case, you're the one to ask Jonah. I believe that in this life, we make our choices. And there's another sequel to that, where I'm talking about my greatest discovery. I believe that we make choices right now, and the moment is now. And the most powerful, most beautiful thing is that we have the power to choose. And soon, this world is coming to an end. I think it's a reality people don't want to believe in. But for me, my message is that let's prepare for eternity. We are not here for good. We are here, we are passing through. And that is what that incident taught me, that you would be alive today and tomorrow you're not there. I mean, that day when I left court, feeling like I'm the one in charge here, I have to put this lawyer in his place. I ended up having a lesson that transformed me. And now I'm preaching to everyone, let's walk humbly before God. We are not perfect, but let's do our best. Let's trust in God. It's only faith that can give us victory in this life.
Wow, wow, wow. Beautiful, beautiful. So viewers, we are coming to the end of this particular segment. So we'll just take maybe parting shots. What is your message to our viewers? Maybe in about a minute.
Yeah, I start first by congratulating the judge for this very important book, The Making of a Judge. And number 2, I encourage everyone to get themselves a copy of the book. I know it's a gem. It's got lots of lessons to learn. I know it's full of humor because I know her stories are full of humor. I've read a bit of it and I know it will be worth your value, even much more. So please grab yourself a copy. And congratulations, Judge, my friend, for this major achievement, major milestone in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mbaabu. Maybe Mr. Okello, you can give us your parting shot as well.
Yeah, well, yes, first just to again congratulate the judge for doing this, and I hope this challenges other judges and judicial officers to also write the memoirs. Hardly are their stories told, and it is something that even the Kenya Judiciary Academy and the offices of retired chief justices are keen on, so that these stories are told. Judges and judicial officers have like 4 days in one. So from the courtroom to the chambers, that is the courthouse face. Then from, I call it the home house. Especially female judges, not judges, especially female judges and judicial officers. Then you do the home house, where you have to write your judgments at home, but also play motherly duties at home. And the pressures that bring to our judicial officers is never obvious to the public. And I think when judges and judicial officers start telling stories behind the bench and what the mechanics of judging and the pressures of judging, probably some of the complaints that the judge raises in the book about the acidity in the social media may calm down a little bit. So one way I think of trying to answer those issues also is just to expose our lives within acceptable parameters of what goes on beyond what people see in court. Because after hearing, litigants just think of their case. They don't know that there are 10 others. And it is every day. So they have to hear, then they have to retire and write, and they have to deliver. So I think these memoirs are important, also in leveling with the public about what this work actually means. The second point is just to say this book also speaks to a debate that is as old as democracy about the relationship with religion and the state. The Constitution says they should be separate. Yes, but at the same time, there's a recognition that faith has an influence in how we perceive the world. The Constitution itself recognizes God. The oath of office itself ends by "so help me God." They are so separate until we even have Kathy's quote in the Constitution. So the demarcation is not one of purity. Because when the Chief Justice is swearing, taking his oath of office, he places his hand. He raises the Bible with the right hand and places his hand on the Constitution, the left hand on the Constitution. So does the President. So I don't think there is, there is an inherent contradiction. It's just about what are the demarcations that are acceptable so that we live together as diverse faiths and religions. Otherwise, thank you, Judge. This is a very welcome addition to the body of knowledge around the judiciary, and I just want to congratulate you for making it happen.
Thank you. So I don't know if you have any parting shot or anything you want the judge to tell us before we end the show.
Thank you, Lorraine. Mine is to ask you, Judge, I've read your book and I know it's going to benefit so many people, judicial officers, the judges, lawyers, and any wisdom seeker. But according to you, who will benefit the most in your book, and how is it going to transform the legal industry as a whole, and the perception? What perception will the people have about the legal profession?
Okay, my book is actually about faith, footprints of faith, stories that shaped my life. I want to speak to someone out there who is going through things which they perceive as disadvantages or adversities or suffering. Right from when I was very young, and I was in school, and I see this little girl being bullied at Atieno because she didn't come from my community. And I take it upon myself to report anyone who dares to bully her to the teachers. Little did I know that God was opening doors for me to one day become a judge of the High Court of Kenya and defend the rights of other people. So whatever you're going through, I know people go through challenges. Sometimes people give up and say that God forgot me, or I'm just unlucky. I want everyone who reads this book to believe in God, to know that you are not here by accident, you are here by divine design, and that God created you for a purpose. I think the most important thing is to discover your purpose and pursue it. By the way, there are like 10 other books which are in the pipeline. Wow. 3 are already. And
this is the third one.
Yes, this is the third one, but there are many more which are now in the pipeline. I think it's good to have that winning attitude. When I was sent to Tana River, for example, the heat there was so much, and there are no, there are no facilities such as, ACs, like in Mombasa, you can be working in a nice office with AC and you are comfortable, although the place is hot. But I decided to enjoy the weather, and I call
The
it
heat.
a natural sauna. And so I could tell my staff that in Nairobi, you have to pay a lot of money to be in a sauna like this. And the same thing right now in Voi, which is also very hot. And I enjoy the weather, and I enjoy the sweating. So I think it's about having the right attitude, knowing that you are a child of God. And I just want to thank all of you for coming here to support me. But first and foremost, I thank the Almighty God for having given me all these opportunities. And right now, when I look back, I realize that whatever I thought was a disadvantage turned out to be a great blessing. And it's always good to have the right attitude. Someone has said that it is your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. So I believe that whatever happens to you, don't look at it as a disadvantage, as suffering. Have a positive attitude and ask, what does God want me to learn from this? And be better, not bitter from life situations. So I thank the Almighty God for this opportunity to be able to tell my story, my testimony, and encourage someone to trust in God. I thank my family, and especially my husband, who encouraged me to study law when there was only one university in Kenya, and I was already admitted in the BA class. He encouraged me to study law, and always prays for me. And when he prays, he says, Lord, my wife, your daughter loves you. And that encourages me. When I go to the mirror, I tell myself, did you hear that? You're a daughter of God. So whatever people say out there, know who you are. In one of the stories, I've said that a brother cut his brother's leg because the brother called him a dog. So when they came before me, I asked him, did you turn into a dog when he called you a dog? Did you really have to cut your brother's leg because he called you a dog? You know you're not a dog. So whatever people call you, know who you are. And go and affirm yourself. And also, know you're a child of God. And go back to God always in prayer. I mean, one of the most beautiful things in this life is that we can always pray, wherever you are, even when you are in court, even before the cameras, you're praying and you're connecting with your God. So for me, I think it's for anyone who dares to have faith in God, to know that wherever they are, your circumstances are immaterial. Your age is irrelevant. You can always have a beautiful life, trusting God and depending on Him for everything.
Wow, thank you, Judge. We need to trust in God. Be better, not bitter. Over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our guests for, again, creating time to just be here today. Viewers, this is the book that we are launching, The Making of a Judge, and it is written by none other than Lady Justice Asnath Ongeri. Please get yourself a copy. Read these stories. It is inspirational, and it is a book that you must have if you want to make it, because it is one that will show you how you can navigate the difficult, milestones and hurdles that come your way. It's a book that will help you in a humorous way, in certain instances, to be able to know how you can tackle some of the challenges that come your way. But most importantly, it teaches you how to anchor yourself in God and in your faith so that you can make it. So please get yourself a copy, Textbook Center or knowledgefortransformation.com, knowledgefortransformation.com. You'll be able to get your copy. Thank you so much for staying with us all this time, and I hope that we can continue to interact on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, so the links will be appearing on the screen right now. Please make sure you like, follow, subscribe, so that you can get to know what we are up to. So thank you so much, and God bless you.
Sometimes I flail. not for want of trying. Often I fail when I try too hard. Occasionally I turn away when it is hard to try. A few times I run away when I've been hard at trying. But every time I say, certainly there's another way. Yeah.